So the question I want to talk about today is which antipsychotic is the best? And I'm not a bench scientist. I'm just some weirdo on the internet. So I'm not going to actually answer the question because I don't know if you've caught on yet. I never answer the question that I say I'm going to. But I hope I give you just an analogy for a way that I guess I think about it. And I actually think it's more important to teach people how to think rather than to teach them what to think. Before I jump into the antipsychotics, I have something else on my mind that I want to talk about first that's kind of unrelated. It's who's the best NBA players of all time. Now, the easy answer, no one's going to argue with it, is Jordan, right? But it's really not that simple. So let me go into a few of the reasons why the question's a little more complicated than it sounds. The first is you rarely see these players play head-to-head, right? There's really no incentive for these guys to go 1v1. And even if they did, it's not really clear that would answer the question for who's better. One-on-one is kind of like this completely artificial situation, and it wouldn't generalize to, a 5v5 game, which has a lot more complexity to it. And even, Jordan's accepted to be the GOAT, but it's well known that he was problematic. He was pathologically overcompetitive. Yeah, he was good at basketball, but he tried to play baseball, he was bad at it. He tried to be an NBA exec, he was bad at it. He struggled with gambling, he struggled with being a difficult teammate. And he's a good demonstration that you can't compare superiority by head-to-head competitions. When you look at his stats versus Isaiah Thomas from 1985 to 1990, Isaiah Thomas was pretty much dominant. And again, that doesn't mean that Isaiah Thomas was the better basketball player. It just kind of shows how complicated it is to prove that one player is better than the other. And after Jordan, you have to acknowledge that there's a new generation of players who are directly influenced by Jordan's game. There are some players where this influence is not subtle at all. Kobe Bryant is probably the best example. It's clear that Kobe studied Michael Jordan. He even referred to himself as like Jordan's little brother. And one interesting aspect of them is you see similar flaws outside of basketball. I mean, granted, Kobe didn't have a crippling gambling problem like Jordan did, but both Kobe and Jordan's personal life suffered because they cheated on their wives. It's almost as if the mentality that produces the greatness in their professional life, which is basketball, is inseparable from the problems it creates in your personal life. These things go together in weird ways. You can't just isolate a great basketball player and have them have a happy-go-lucky personal life, but I'm off tangent. One thing you have to acknowledge when you're answering the question of who the best players are is sometimes you're comparing apples to oranges. It actually doesn't make a ton of sense to compare a center like Shaquille O'Neal to like a point guard like Steph Curry. So maybe the problem makes a little bit more sense if you group them up into different categories. And this can help you answer questions a little bit more constructively. So like, for example, if you're asking like who's the best three-point shooter, it might not be clear if it's a point guard or shooting guard, but you're probably not going to find them in the centers. And this helps you think about things in a practical sense when you realize the question of like who's the best NBA player doesn't mean anything. It depends on what job you want done. One thing that comes to mind is, how there's like skill ratings for video games. For the centers, they're probably going to be, as a group, pretty good at rebounding, but they're going to be bad at shooting, right? But even splitting it up into different groups comes with the same problem. Because as I was saying, like, it may be easier to answer who's the best center than it is to answer who's the best NBA player. But then when you're trying to answer who the best center is, that's a tough question in itself. You see Shaq in the conversation for best center, but you shouldn't put him out there for free throws. And then I guess I kind of have to be fair and talk about like new players. I'm especially thinking of players like LeBron. He comes in, there's all this self-promotion. He tells you he's the GOAT, which it's like, you're not the one who gets to pick that. And like, look, I get it. Money's important. But these dudes are getting major contracts. They're getting shoe deals. They're getting, company endorsements. It seems like money is the priority over basketball. And a lot of these players, like, they don't stay in their lane. Like, they get involved with like political and social stuff. And, maybe it will help. But we should be listening to experts first before we go to basketball players on certain topics. That's all I'm saying. So what's the point of this, right? All I'm saying is that everyone's got a different opinion. Everyone's got their biases. Two very intelligent people can have completely opposite opinions. So, it's like fun to talk about these things, but the truth is it doesn't really matter. I think the best fans are not the ones who know every little nuance of every little player and know every single attribute of every single player. The best fans are the ones that they love their team and they watch the game and you have respect for the other players and the other teams and you follow the other stuff, but, you don't need to get tied down to the nitty-gritty. Sorry. I feel like I just went on a giant tangent, so I forget the point of this video, but thanks for watching.